All right. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Um, right now, I'm just testing the streaming to see if this is even going to be possible. Using Speedify to try to combine my upload speed, and I have no idea if that works or not. So I guess we'll see. Let's see, what else do I need to look at here? So it looks like Edgar the Face says 3:30 a.m. Yay. So they are somewhere far away from me. And that is unfortunate. Right. Let's close this. Well, I guess we will just start off talking about the recent GPU benchmarks I've been running. If you see this, you've probably seen some of the videos that I've been putting out about these GPU tests. They don't they don't take a lot of work, but they take a lot of time. Um, and some of what we'll do today is have more of a deep dive into what the test is and how we can change it a little. But otherwise, yeah, here are the results I have for now. And I'm trying to get more cards, and I've like the 6800 XT I borrowed from somebody that is my friend that lives close, so I'm gonna have to do a little of that. I know somebody in a comment had brought up maybe making a Discord server so that we can share the test scene. I think that's a good idea because obviously I don't have every single model of card ever made. I have a lot of them, but not especially AMD. I don't have a ton. So probably be looking into adding a Discord server just to share files back and forth, and then we can kind of have more of a open discussion about all of it. Um, and this whole time I'm watching my upload and my bitrate and everything because I have not got a live stream to work yet in my testing. So bear with me if it cuts out or anything like that. So just be aware that the stream could end at any second, and it's not my fault. But looks like it's doing okay, surprisingly. Yeah. So um, most recent tests I did were the 6700 XT and the 6800 XT. I'll say, and now these were in Blender 3.5. I have downloaded 3.6 with the new AMD HIP RT, and I haven't been able to get a difference yet in render speed between the old HIP and the new HIP RT. So maybe somebody will be able to point me in the right direction to get the right drivers. I did try a few drivers. I tried the newest drivers from AMD. They just didn't seem to help a lot. So I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that. I think maybe once it comes out of the beta phase, it might be a little better, a little more optimized just inside of Blender. But honestly, it could just be that the 6000 series GPUs don't benefit from HIP RT as much as the 7000 series, obviously. So that'd be one thing to test because these are all Blender 3.5. You can see here a 6600 can do my 100 scene or 100 frame test scene in about 300 minutes. 6700 XT 217 minutes, and a 6800 XT was 115 minutes. So I would say the jump from the 66 to the 6700 was disappointing, but the jump from there up to the 6800 XT was good. I was expecting it to not be quite as much of a jump. So that was awesome. Um, and these again are 3.5, so I'd love to test the new 3.6, but it doesn't just work. The same thing with ProRender, with AMD's ProRender plugin for Blender. I know that there's ways to optimize it, but if a user that doesn't know how to get different drivers comes in and tries to use it, if it doesn't work easily or with a very minor tweak, it's not really ready, in my opinion. So, you know, yeah, you could probably dink around with it and maybe get it to work, but if you can't just click the enable button and have it go, then it's probably not ready. So, at that point, I probably won't use the benchmark um, with that newer software if it's a pain to get it to work, because it's just going to mislead people a little bit, because everybody wants to be able to just plug it in and go. And so for now, I'm going to wait on the 3.6 testing just a little bit until I can figure out exactly what might be the problem. But I'll have a whole new set of data, and I'll retest Cycles X for NVIDIA GPUs as well when I know that 3.6 is done. I know it is supposed to be I think it's an LTS release, which should mean that it's as stable as it's going to get. But I'm going to wait and see if the renders get any better, because right now they are, for AMD at least, they're slightly slower or the exact same for HIP versus HIPRT. So anyway, enough of that. No, nothing new and fancy. I didn't get a lot of speed ups, but we'll keep testing that. Here's the render farm as it sits right now. This changes all the time, but you can just kind of see the mix of cards I have. If you've seen my videos, you've seen this list already. But yeah, I guess there are a couple on here I could test again. The 5500 series, and I do have some 5600s and 5700s. Maybe I'll test those too. I know a lot of people still have those, but they're nowhere near as fast. They don't have any sort of ray tracing hardware like 6000 series above AMD GPUs do, and RTX 20 series and above all have specific hardware for ray tracing. So because the 5500s and above from that year, or the 5000 series, don't have it, I know they're not going to be a great deal for rendering, so I wouldn't go buy them. But again, that's another one of those tests. We'll try it and see, because maybe somebody has it and that will benefit them. So that might come in the future, just to be fair. And if I can find any Intel GPUs for good prices, and maybe I have seen that you have to have resizable bar enabled to get those to work. So I probably won't get a higher end Intel. I'd like I'd like to try their workstation GPUs if I would ever see them come up for sale, but um, we will be testing Intel eventually. I just have to finally decide to buy one, because I kind of have to have an optimized newer system for it, which, like this Render 7, it's a 10th generation i5. That board might allow resizable bar. Otherwise, Render 11 probably would. So I have options. I just have to swap things around quite a bit. But so older AMD, new Intel tests coming eventually, whenever I can find some people to either share GPUs with, or if I can get the right price. So just be watching for that. How else? How's my stream doing? Yeah, looks like we're not dropping frames. So unfortunately, the best I can do is about 720p at 30 frame per second for streaming. So if you watch this and it doesn't look good, just tell me, let me know, because I'll have to figure out what else I can do with it. But for now, that's about all that my internet can handle, so that's fun. But it's something. It works. All right. So yeah, I think GPU wise, that's good for now. And let me know what you think about having some way to share files. I know people have a lot of different hardware, and maybe it'd be easier if I could just have people run the test and then report back. We can just put like a master list together of benchmark results. That might be a good idea. Just kind of share information that way. What else do we have? Okay, I know the next thing I had on my little list was to talk about some newer Blender features. The biggest one, obviously, is that HIP RT is supposed to be live now, and I haven't been able to get it to work. But let's go look over what's new in Blender. So I'm just on Blender's website here, and I read the release notes a little bit the other day, but the one I'm really watching for is simulation nodes that do hair, and I don't think they have it yet. I know they're talking about it. They've been talking about it for a while, but I just think it must just be a lot harder to do than they had thought originally. So I'm just scrolling through here. Yeah, so here is the note about HIPRT. Experimental support for AMD hardware ray tracing acceleration using HIPRT. This improves performance on 6000, 7000, W6000, and W7000 series GPUs. Yeah, so driver version 22.40.51.06 for Blender 3.6, along with enabling HIPRT. Okay, so maybe we'll actually try that because I tried a few different um, drivers, and I don't know if you guys mess with AMD drivers very much, but they can be really, really hard to figure out if you're not used to them. So Blender actually has a link here. So maybe I'll try to connect to one of my render machines. Our power went out a few times last night, so I might have to go reboot a couple of these. But Render 5 is the machine with the 6700 XT, so I don't have the 6800 on hand, but the 6700 XT would be the one that I would prefer to test if I can. Oh, here we go. Okay, looks like we got on. So Render 5, I'll pull up the specs here. This one has the 6700. You can see that there. It might be hard to read, but so ideally, this is the one that we want to test on here. So right now I am just remoted into the Render 5 machine with my remote desktop app. And I'm going to go to the same site I was just on my workstation. And we're going to go get that driver and see if it works. Okay. Where was that? Here we go. Click on the driver. Hopefully it takes us right there. Adrenaline 22.40.51.06. See, I thought I already got that one, but we'll try it. We'll see what happens. See how bad I can tank my stream speed here by downloading something at the same time. No, I don't want to take a short survey. Okay. Well, it's going to take just a minute to download, so might scroll through here again. Yeah, there's a lot of new features in Blender 3.6. Obviously, you can go read through these yourself too, but the most exciting ones to me are always rendering ones. But I mean, just this list is huge. Just look at this. This is crazy. But like, I know they had some for improving UV maps. And where are those on here? Fixed texture alpha on export, fixed duplicate shader nodes. Performance. Oh, wow. 25% less memory usage in large geometries. 80% improvement in memory usage of face corner split. Normal calculation. Here we go. Extracting UV map data 3 times faster. Uh-oh, we're just into code here. I'm not going to know what this is. Very cool, though. I feel like every time they update Blender, there's 500 new things that come out with it that I'll never know how to use. And they'll probably just get passed up because I'll download another one someday and never have used them. But I think somebody out there is definitely going to get the benefit of it. Okay, come on. What are we at? Half done downloading. Okay, one other thing. Let's go find. I know they have advertised some simulation nodes. Real-time simulations can be interacted with. Oh, you can get their pudding file. That's cool. Real-time smoke puffs. That's cool. They always add so much cool stuff, but the one we really want is hair particles, because that is something that has always been a huge problem, and almost everybody needs to use hair at some point. And I just don't know if they have it yet. Okay, this download's done. Let me actually look. Make sure I didn't download this the other night. It doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll close this tab. Download's just getting done here, and then I'll install this driver really quick. So leading up to Blender 3.6, the hype was that AMD drivers would be, or AMD HIP software renderer for cycles would be around 10 to 25% faster than the 3.5 standard HIP, and hopefully that's true. But we should be able to test it here in just a couple minutes pretty easily. So I'm actually going to go grab this. And we'll get it installed on this Render 5 worker. Yes. You can have all my information. Install. Okay. Now that'll take just a minute. So we'll come back here. So we'll run this test here in just a couple minutes. Hopefully we can get these numbers down quite a bit, because like a 4070 costs about $600, and you can find a 6600 for around 200, and we're not quite to the same difference here in speed. So it'd be really cool to see a 6600 do, let's see, what's a quarter of that, down to more like 230 or 40 minutes. Then it'd be right in line for the price with the 4070. So three 6600s could make up one 4070, obviously not considering power, but it'd be really nice if we could get the software to catch up on AMD's side. And I've had this discussion before, but I don't know whose fault or whose problem it is to get the software going. But to the end user, AMD's hardware is just not running as fast as it could be in Blender. So I'd really like to see it get to where it can be, because AMD's hardware is great, especially with how few compute units they have compared to NVIDIA's cards. They do some wizardry with the memory system, and it's really quite crazy how they can keep up at all with how many fewer cores they seem to have. but that software needs to be there, and so far it just hasn't been. But all right, now let's install. So now I'm back on the render worker. I'm just going to install this, hopefully. And let's see. So while that happens, actually I probably shouldn't run. I was going to say I can run the test scene um, on Blender 3.5, but probably shouldn't run the card while we're installing a driver. And I have to actually make sure. Yep. Looks like I need to boot my storage server again. Unfortunately, we had a crazy storm that lasted about 20 minutes last night, and it killed the power multiple times. So all of my machines have been on and off overnight. Yep, looks like I got to restart that one. I am going to go hit the go button on that PC, and I'll be right back in just a second. Okay, just had to reboot that guy. So that computer is what has all of my shared Blender files on it, and a bunch of my add-ons and other stuff like that. So definitely need that booted back up. It's going to load now. Nope, not quite. There's always that little fear that it got shut down hard enough and damaged a hard drive, but we'll see. All right, we'll give that just a second. So if you want to try your 6,000 or 7,000 thousand series GPUs from AMD on Blender 3.6, it looks like the best way to get the exact right driver is just to go to blender.org and look at the release notes. They have a link to the exact driver you need. Okay, I'm going to restart Render 5. We just installed that new driver. We're going to see if that can give us the speed up that we expect. Let's pull up the handy calculator, but a 6600 doing my test scene in 300 minutes, that should go down to supposedly as low as 225 minutes if we get the full 25% out of it. I don't know if we will or not. I've seen anywhere from no change to 25% benefit. And I believe Edgar the Face, who apparently probably won't be joining us because it's about 4 a.m. where he is, he told me his 7900 was able to do 25% faster rendering with the new 3.6. So that's kind of what we're hoping for. But we shall see. When Render 5 boots up here, let's see if we can get a frame at least. We're not going to run the entire test tonight, obviously, because even the 6700 takes a little over 3 hours, almost 3.5 hours to run. So we're not going to just sit and watch that, but we will run one of the more intense frames on Blender 3.5 and then on Blender 3.6, and we'll see if we can notice any sort of a speed up. Okay, here we go. So now we have the shared drive back up, so we're good to go there. All right, now I'm going to just load up my, I call it Diamonds, which is my 100 frame test scene. I'll probably add new scenes over time too. I know people probably get tired of seeing the same one. So I'll do it kind of like how Blender has multiple different standard images that you can render and then you can compare to each other with. So like the BMW scene and those things. So I'll make a few different scenes that kind of test different parts of the GPU. So I know that like volumetrics are one that are really, really, really hard for GPUs to run. So that would be an interesting test. Maybe I'll do some sort of a EV animation that's just a lot higher frame rate. See how that goes. But let's actually open. So it looks like we've got our files. We got everything ready. I'm going to just load Blender first and then open the file. The other thing I hadn't tested yet, it shouldn't matter, but hopefully the newer version of Blender doesn't cause a problem with using flip fluids that was from 3.5 and before. So we will see if it matters. But okay, so I'll go to Edit, Preferences, and I'll pull up the GPU settings here. So I'm in the system settings for Blender, running HIP. You can see I have the 6700 XT checked. So this Blender 3.5 and before does not have an option for HIP-RT. So what we want to test is we want to see if HIP and HIP-RT can give different results for rendering. The RT stands for ray tracing. So ideally anything that's a 6000 series AMD GPU or newer should get a significant speed boost from the RT version. But for some reason here I always test frame 61. So we're gonna load up frame 61 and I'll show you the render preview real fast so you can see what it should look like. And here's the camera. Okay, so that's the frame that we're gonna test. What we're gonna do is we're gonna test them with HIP first, and then we'll try HIP RT, and hopefully we have the right driver and everything lines up, and we get a better result. So that's what we're looking for. I'm gonna go back to shading preview, so we're not using up the GPU just to make the pretty image in the viewport here. And then all of the settings in this scene I don't change. So these output settings are always the same. I don't touch them. So I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just going to render the image. And I think normally this frame 61 takes about 2 minutes. So I think it's 2 minutes and 17 seconds or something like that. And yes, I do actually have them memorized. It's pretty bad. But you know, I start testing these things to see right away is there a difference, and I always go back to the same frame. So you guys see this list here, which is kind of the nice final data, and in my head I have memorized certain frames take certain amounts of time. It's pretty bad, but that's just kind of what you got to do. And you know, one thing is you don't want to jump around and have a whole bunch of different test scenes because then the data doesn't mean anything. So as boring as the one diamond scene is, it's the only way to get reliable data, it seems like. Okay, so this one's running. One thing I've noticed, I don't know, just because of the resolution of the stream, I don't know if you can see the rendering, like the sample count up here. In the kind of the top middle of the screen here. The weirdest thing about AMD GPUs is that they seem to render the samples slower at the beginning and then they speed up at the end, and it's kind of like a smooth curve in speed. It's super weird. NVIDIA, they seem to just do it's almost linear. So it's like AMD looks like it's going to take 4 times as long to render a frame, and then all of a sudden at the end the sample count speeds up really fast. So it must just be how their denoising works or something, but definitely an interesting difference between the two, just how they kind of feel while you're using them, I guess. Okay, we're right about the end of the samples here. Now it's going to load for just a second. AMD does all the denoising right at the end. I think I think NVIDIA does too, actually. AMD's cards seem to take just a little longer. And I think that's partly because they just don't have the AI cores dedicated in the same way that NVIDIA GPUs do. And that's what handles that denoising. So, but okay, so frame 61 of the test scene with Blender 3.5 and Blender cycles HIP. And this took 2 minutes and 22, almost 23 seconds. So 2 minutes and 23 seconds. So let's just make a spot over here. Okay, just so we can make sure we remember. So that's Blender 3.5. Now I'm going to close this, don't save, and I'm going to open Blender 3.6. And we'll open the diamond scene. So we'll go into render preview and I'll click the camera so you can see frame 61 here. It's the same frame we were just running. Okay, so it should look the same when we render it. Now I'm going to go to preferences. And now under the system preferences for cycles rendering devices, we have the same GPU checked. We're under HIP, but there's this HIP RT click box down here. So we're going to check that on. And then I'm going to click out and then back into the render preview and see if there's any difference there. I would say not that you can feel. There might be, but you can't really tell. And all I'm doing by doing that is just seeing if like the samples seem to run faster in the viewport or not, which it's not a very scientific test, but they definitely don't feel any faster at this moment. But that's not what we're testing. So the rest of the settings I haven't touched. We're just gonna go ahead and render it. Okay, so we're doing frame 61 again of the diamond test scene, and we're just gonna see if HIP RT is actually going to make a difference yet. And I don't know. I tried the other day with a different driver and I couldn't get any sort of difference. So we shall see, but I'm guessing that with more RT cores and more advanced RT cores on the 7000 series GPUs, those probably get more of a speed bump from this. But the 6000 series definitely do have their own RT cores. So I wouldn't say that I expect it to not help, but it's kind of like the 20 series NVIDIA was their first generation that had ray tracing cores, and they advertised it like you could do all this crazy stuff with it. But at the end of the day, they, especially for games, they really didn't have the ray tracing power that they needed to do it very well. They could do it, and obviously that helped in Blender a lot back then because you went from just a CUDA core to a ray tracing core that was made for the light path tracing stuff. So I think the 6000 series is more like that for AMD. It's just their first try, and they weren't nearly as good as the current ones. Well, let's see. Looks like this test might end up being about the same speed. Yeah, it's going to be very close, if not the same or even a little longer. So as we wait for this to get done here, yeah, it's going to be really similar. So if somebody sees this video and knows why I might be getting an unexpected result. Um, Here it's about done denoising. Okay, so now with the experimental HIPRT, this test took 2 minutes and almost 32 seconds. So let's go put that on our little log here. 232 almost. So um, HIPRT on this card is actually slower by 9 seconds, which is probably small enough to just be part of error, but it's definitely not convincing. Nothing is jumping out to me saying, "Hey, yeah, this is great. Go buy a 6000 series GPU now." So let's put a little header here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. 3.5 versus 3.6. Let's just be fancy and give it a little underline there. How about that? Okay. So yeah, basically within error, there's probably no reason to jump on an AMD GPU from the 6000 series just because of HIPRT. Now, the thing I'll say is it changes a lot based on the type of scene and uh, what card you have, because I bet the higher end cards like the 6900 XT probably would get more of a benefit. I think below the 6800, they don't have enough cores anyway, so it probably isn't going to make a huge difference. But it'd be nice to see that little speed boost. So now, just out of curiosity, I want to maybe run one of these easy scenes. So the first scene looks like this. There's no actual splashes in the water, so it should run a lot faster. I am just going to try to run a couple of those. So we're still in 3.6. I haven't changed any settings, so we'll just run frame 1 here. And this shouldn't take anywhere near the 2.5 minutes, but we'll come back to it. Okay, so keep that 2.5 minutes in your head, and I am going to show you basically the reason that you should be buying an RTX 4090 if you can possibly get it. Come on, storage computer. There we go. Regular diamonds. Okay. So I'm going to open the diamonds test scene on my workstation, and this is the one with the 4090. So keep in mind the 6700 XT took 2.5 minutes to run the scene. I'll show it to you here in render preview so you can see it's not any different. Oh, just got a new driver, so of course I have to build the render kernels. That'll take a second, but here in edit mode preferences, you can see that I have just the 4090 selected for optics rendering. And this is Blender 3.5. I haven't tested to see if 3.6 has any speedups for NVIDIA. As far as I know, it doesn't have anything different, but we'll have to see. In the next few days, I can try to test it or see. I don't think their release notes had anything about 3.6 and NVIDIA GPUs. Yeah, they're mentioning AMD, Apple. I don't see anything else though, so we'll have to look into that later. But so basically, I think the way to look at it right now is that NVIDIA's hardware is ready to go and their software is ready to go, but AMD's hardware is the only part they have ready, so the software is just not there yet. But all right, so yeah, let's go to frame 61. Now this is on the 4090. And keep in mind the 6700 XT took 2.5 minutes to do this. So I'm going to render just frame 61, and you can see how much faster this is. And hopefully my stream isn't too small. Hopefully you can see it, but if not, it's already done half of the samples. And now denoising, and done. It took 20 seconds for the 4090 to run the same frame. It took 2.5 for the 6700 XT. Now, obviously, the 6700 XT is a lot slower because it's a whole generation old, and it's kind of a mid-level card. It's not a high-end card, so there's a lot of advantages that just from the price, the 4090 has. But I mean, 20 seconds versus 2.5 minutes. That's absolutely crazy how different that is. So part of the whole discussion of the GPUs is what value are you getting? So if you look at this list, um, for 350-ish, you can get a 6700 XT, or for about 4.5 times the price, you can get a 4090, but you would have to spend 7 times the money based on the speed. So the 4090 just spits out a lot more frames per dollar per any amount of time you want to use. So you get more frames per hour per dollar you spend on the 4090 than you do any other GPU that's out there today. And that's wild. So yes, it's expensive, but if you're looking at over time, and you spend more for more setups. So if I actually go out and buy 7 of these cheaper 6700 XTs, I have to have 2, 3, 4, or 5 different computers to run all of them. And all those extra setups cost a lot. Plus, they all use power for processors and waste and all that too. So when we start looking at the value, it's really kind of insane how not cheap, but how much value you get for the 4090. So, and I need to add a column here that's like dollars per frame per hour or something, but I haven't figured out the best way to describe that yet. But let's go back to this render. Okay, so this was the 6700 XT again. Frame one doesn't have any of the water splashing, so I figure that might be quite a bit less intense, and it only took about a minute and a half, a minute 26 seconds, and that was on 3.6. So I'm just going to copy this stuff down. Maybe. There we go. 126. And then I'm going to rerun that in Blender 3.5 again. So basically all this testing, I'm just trying to put a nice standardized list together of all the GPUs that I can get my hands on, so that hopefully you can make a good decision if you're looking to buy one. And that way, you know that you have Blender specific data to go on, because I know that can be really hard to find. We're in Blender 3.5, so I'm going to render this image one more time. See if there's any difference on a less intense scene. I'm guessing there's probably not. I'll have to wait to hear from people if maybe I missed something, but I have the driver that I'm supposed to have for this according to Blender. And other than that, I don't know what else I can do other than, I guess, just wait and see what they come out with. But this shouldn't take much longer. So we'll let this test, or this frame run for just what is it, about another 30 seconds, and then that's probably all we'll do for testing right now, just because I don't have any new hardware to show you guys. So I was saying earlier, I'll probably set up a Discord or maybe some sort of Dropbox. I don't know what website or what service to use yet, but I'd like to share the scene so that you guys can run your hardware on it, and obviously we can test CPUs and whatever else too. But I want to share a few of these scenes so that we can all get together and share the data. But okay, so this one, see, now here's another example. This is the older, this is Blender 3.5, and this frame took about 1 minute and 21 seconds. 121. So it looks like in both tests, uh, this one is a less intense scene, but in both tests, the older HIP is actually slightly faster than the new HIP RT. So that's super interesting because that is not what we expect, and really what we're not hoping to see. So, not sure what's going on there, but that's the current state of HIP RT, I guess, for 6000 series GPUs. So, yeah, I have a friend that's close that has a 6800 XT. I'll have to test that again because that'd be about the only one that I think might come out ahead from this. Um, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it just doesn't look like it's an advantage right now. So anyway, that's all I have about GPU tests right now. You guys have kind of been able to see what it is, what it looks like. Um, it just it's just this little fluid sim. That's all. That's all it is. It's just 100 frames, and each card runs the 100 frames, and then I collect the start and stop times basically. So nothing real crazy to it. I do have to figure out how to bake this fluid surface so that I can send the file to you without you having to have flip fluids, and plus the files just get way too big. So obviously we don't want to be like emailing this to each other because it's, I want to say 30 or 40 gigabytes, which is just too much. But yeah, so that's it. That's what I have for GPU testing right now. Let me know if you see this. Let me know what kind of hardware you want to see tested, or if you have any that you could maybe test this scene on, and then we can start building this standard list of test results, kind of like this. But people have a lot of different stuff, so we might as well see what it can all do. And the biggest one I don't have is Intel. We need more Intel because I think they're going to be a huge player. If their GPUs aren't already um, high value for this, they may just be really good at it. I don't know yet. I haven't got one. So if anybody has an Intel, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, that's what I wanted to cover today for the benchmarking stuff. I'll be having more of the short videos soon about new hardware as I get them. So just watch for those, I guess. But for now, that's about it. One question I did have for everybody, if you see this, do you want to see any CPU testing? Because I have a small range of different CPUs here, and I'm curious to see if people still want to try to render on CPUs or not. So if you see this, let me know if maybe you'd be interested in that. Um, I can tell you right off the bat, there is no CPU in the entire world that comes anywhere near a modern GPU in terms of frames rendered and value. Your 64 to 128 and higher core CPUs are just so expensive, and they use so much power that they're basically competing with a GPU anyway on power. Plus all the other parts of the system you have to have, they're just not efficient for your money if you're just rendering. So, but if you guys want me to go back and test old Xeons, I have a few of those. 4000 series i7s. I got a bunch of weird stuff, and then some modern ones. So if you want to see CPU tests, let me know. That's something I haven't really done yet, but obviously they would let you use a lot more RAM. So if you really need massive scenes, then you're kind of stuck with CPU rendering anyway. I just tend to avoid it if possible. Let's see. Okay, we can close this scene. Yeah, so for now, that's it on GPU testing. That's it on the render farm. I don't have anything crazy going on with hardware now. So I'll post a new video if I end up getting something or find some good Intel chips. But otherwise, for now, I think I'm just going to start working on one of my character models. So I'll let the stream run in case anyone pops in. Otherwise, that's it for computer stuff for now. So let me know what you think and what you want to see, because somebody out there will have an answer. And if we get together on it, then we can save each other some money and some time, hopefully. But yep, so this is the next character I'm going to work on. I'll probably shut the stream down here because this isn't necessarily on topic, but this will be another day probably. Um, just kind of a little preview for you, but I'm going to work on a Periton, which is a old mythological creature, which was some sort of a um, afterlife spirit in the form of a deer with teeth, and I think they eat people and stuff, so that's pretty cool. Something like this, but that's yeah, that's it for now. I think we'll call that good. As far as the streaming test, it looks like we only dropped 176 frames out of 100,000, so that's not too bad. So I don't know if I can run any better resolution, but maybe next time I'll try to go up a notch and just see what we get. But yeah, otherwise, if you tuned in, thanks for watching. This is definitely a lot of blabbing about some really specific hardware stuff, but that's what the testing is, and this is how I get you guys these answers and hopefully help you make decisions on buying stuff. But let me know if you see this, what your thoughts are, and I'll see you again soon.